The flow experience. Now, what do I mean by that? In the context of this conversation, a flow experience merely refers to a state of mind where you're fully immersed in with whatever you're doing. Your mind is not distracted with other things during this type of activity. For example, you're not thinking about what other people are thinking of you. You're not thinking about what you have to do later on that day. Oh, I've got to get the groceries, or get my mail, or pay off some bills, or meet up with a friend, or watch a certain show, or do a certain assignment. You're not thinking about these things during that type of activity. You're completely involved in with whatever you're doing. Now, it seems as though that this type of experience is not all that common throughout our days. The vast majority of our time is spent doing other things that are really not us being fully involved in with whatever we're doing. We're typically very distracted, and we're almost in a state of anxiety or boredom, frequently. And I think that you can end up experiencing flow in every single waking moment of your life. If you wanted to, it's going to take a lot of rearranging of your habits of thought to eventually end up acquiring this sort of lifelong flow experience. But I think it really can be done. And I think a trick to it all is to figure out, okay, so what kind of qualities does this experience have? Like when we're fully involved in with whatever we're doing, like what sort of things do we typically have that make it so? And the four things that I want to quickly talk about, what makes a flow experience, or what allows us to experience flow more readily, is that the activity has variety, it has suitable challenges, it has immediate feedback, and there's usually some goal involved, some point to what you're doing. Now, the first one, variety. And again, if this doesn't apply to you, great, because it seems to apply to so many people that I come into contact with in my society. And by the way, I live in the United States. So whenever I come across people working or being involved within their job, they're usually in a state of boredom or they're in a state of anxiety, mainly because there's not a lot of variety with whatever they're doing. It's the same old day in and day out. There's not a lot of versatility, not a lot of novelty, not a lot of different nuances that occur throughout the day that are just new and fresh. Through that freshness, there's a certain invigorating quality to it. It's the unexpected, and through the unexpected, it becomes fun. When things become overly familiar, they become boring. Now, let's think about an activity of flow for many people, and that's golf. Now, golf has variety because the conditions of the course are always changing. There's different pin placements, there's different rough conditions, or fairway conditions, or green conditions, depending on whether or not it rained the night before. The grass is going to be playing differently, and if it's a dry day, it's going to play differently in that sense. So there's a wide variety that occurs throughout it. And a lot of the sporting events, hockey, bowling, basketball, chess, badminton, soccer, there's so many different sports that there's variety to it. Your opponents are always going to act differently, and that ends up creating a certain enjoyable aspect to it all. There's novelty. Also, there's suitable challenges. Now, I like to think that there is a relationship between the type of challenges that you have and your level of skill. Let's use chess as an example, because I love chess. I've been really getting involved with it. I was playing it actually earlier today, and it's fresh on my mind. So let's just say you're just starting to learn the game. You're just figuring out the moves of the pieces. You really don't know what's going on, but you have the basic idea. Now let's just say that your first game, you end up coming across an opponent that's just flat out ridiculous. They're a grandmaster. Now let's just say you play a game with them. There's a very good chance that you're not going to experience flow during this game, mainly because your skills are not matching the degree of challenges involved. The challenges are way too high. And as a result of that, you're probably not having fun at all. You're just probably bewildered. Another example, a little more extreme example, because you could potentially get hurt in the process, I suppose, whereas chess, you're typically pretty safe. But if you were playing against, say for example, a really good tennis player, somebody that can hit the ball like 105 miles an hour, and you're just figuring the game out like, oh cool, I can hit a ball over a net, haha, I'm really good at this. And then you lob one over, and they just flat out just smack one right down the pipe at 105 miles an hour. I mean, you're going to be freaked out. That's not going to be all that enjoyable at all. It's going to be frightening. So your skills have to match the degree of challenges. Now, say for example, let's go back to our chess situation, and now you start figuring out the game a little more. You learn about the tactical ideas, pins and skewers and forks, and attacking the defender, and discoveries, and you're learning about pawn structure and protecting your king, and how to do openings and endgame play, and you're figuring out all the various nuances of the game, and your skills are improving. Now, your challenges have to also increase if you want to end up experiencing flow. Say, for example, you acquire these high degree of skills, but now you start playing against opponents that really aren't that good. Maybe they're just figuring out the moves as you were beforehand. And now you can weave through their defenses with absolutely no problem whatsoever, and it's really no challenge at all to checkmate them or to just do what you wish on the board. It's going to be boring. So when your challenges are too high in relation to your skills, you feel anxiety. And if your challenges aren't suitable to your skills, they're not challenging enough, you're going to be bored. So there's that flow channel, that space that is between anxiety and boredom, I think, that you can end up acquiring as your challenges are meeting up with your degree of skill. So these activities have variety, they have suitable challenges, and they also have immediate feedback. Like, you get to see the results right off the bat. If you make a bad move in chess, well, your opponent can immediately react, and you're back to the drawing board. If you are playing golf and you don't line up your shot properly, or your mind is not synchronized with your body, and you're distracted thinking about trivial things during the course of your shot, and you end up hooking it way out of bounds as a result, you see the results immediately. And if there's a delay, if there's a wide gap in between what you do and the results of what you ended up doing there's a lag period. And it's very difficult to get into a state of flow when there's a tremendous lag from your experience. And there's usually some goal involved within these types of activities. Like, you're shooting for something. I mean, even if it's like music, I mean, the goal is maybe just the beautiful sounds that you're creating, or the aesthetic experience of just hearing the various harmonies and melodies and whatnot, but that's still type of a goal. So there's variety, there's suitable challenges, there's immediate feedback, and there's some goal involved. Now, if you ever have a type of activity that you just typically don't enjoy doing, in my case, I really don't like washing dishes, mowing the lawn, taking out the garbage, or doing a variety of different other activities that usually don't end up generating a state of flow. I think if you were to apply these 4 qualities, you can end up more readily achieving a state of flow within those types of activities. But what I want to think about now, for a moment, if that's okay, is that when you're involved in this type of experience, when you're fully engaged in with whatever you're doing, I think that you end up creating order within your own consciousness. And this order ends up increasing your energy output, or the amount of energy that you end up experiencing. And a flow experience to me, and I want to talk about this in a metaphor, and it's going to be in relation to like a light bulb. I'm actually sitting right in front of a light bulb, in fact, and I assume it's probably a 3-watt light bulb. Now, the photons that this light bulb is creating, and by the way, a photon is an elementary particle of light, are incoherent, which is to say that the photons aren't working in unison with each other. They're actually creating something called destructive wave patterns, and energy is being canceled out as a result. Now, let's just say hypothetically I were to get every single one of these photons to move in harmony with each other. If they were to sync up their troughs and crests together, where they all formed one coherent stream of energy, I can end up creating an energy density far greater than the surface of the sun, millions of times hotter than the surface of the sun, in fact, by using the exact same amount of energy flowing through that. But it would be just making all of those waves coherent with each other. And a different metaphor to think about for the coherency of waves, or the coherency of these photons, is that, say there is a marching band going down the street, and they have that single file alignment, where they're spaced very, very well in between. That is like a stream of coherent photons, where they're all working together, they're all flowing in unison with each other. And when you end up having all of these photons flowing in unison with each other, what you end up acquiring is a laser. That's actually what a laser is you just get a very coherent stream of energy. The light bulb is like if you were to have one of these members of the marching band were to just be like, I'm going over there, and he just beelines at this side and bumps into his fellow marcher, and he bumps into another one, and before you know it, there's a massive state of disorder where everybody's crashing into everybody, and the whole flow of the situation is completely jeopardized, all because they're all working against each other. And I think that all the various cells in your body, let's just say, for example, there's approximately 300 trillion cells in your body, whenever you're in a state of distraction, if you're ever thinking about other things other than what you're doing at the time, you're not involved in a flow experience, you're just thinking about what you need to be doing later on, or whatever the case may end up being there. It's like all of these individual cells in your body are like the photons of that incoherent light bulb. They're all clashing with each other's energy. They're canceling each other out. And the overall energy density, which is going to be the experience of your consciousness, is very low. It's a very low energetic output because it's fragmenting itself. It's dividing itself up. But now let's just say, for example, if each and every one of these 300 trillion cells were to align themselves in the same frequency, where all of a sudden they were to synchronize their efforts together. And I think that ends up what happening when you end up experiencing a flow experience, is when you end up creating order within your consciousness, you end up creating order within your body, and all of the energy of them align themselves like that coherent laser, and they come into focus, and as a result of that you end up experiencing this very high state of awareness, or high state of a focus or attention. So you can actually think about the flow experience as creating order within yourself. But the main point that I want to mention is that the flow experience, being fully engaged with whatever you're doing, you end up losing your image of yourself. But what ends up happening is you end up gaining a stronger sense of self as a result of it. Like as a result of losing that image, losing that, oh, what are other people thinking of me? Or am I doing this properly? Or do I look silly when I do this activity? You're not thinking about this stuff at all. There is no image of yourself, and as a result of that, there's a strong sense of self where you can fully be involved with whatever you're doing. And your skills ends up increasing dramatically as a result of that. And I think that every single moment of your life can generate a state of flow. But I think that you just sort of have to be mindful of how you're perceiving reality. I think that's sort of the key to it all. So I think that you can have a lifelong flow experience, and how fantastic would that be if you were to achieve that?